then of course it's just like a glass. When a glass is empty and you put your finger to the rim of the glass, you can hear it sing. But when the glass is full, the sound is very different. It's the same with emotions.
Hey lady, welcome to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. Do you struggle with self-doubt, setting boundaries, or feeling overwhelmed? My name is Alyssa, and I'm a highly sensitive woman who spent years trying to fit in, ignoring my own needs, and living in constant fear of disappointing others. But I finally discovered the power of embracing who I am, and now I don't feel so broken. In this podcast, you'll learn to find your voice, set boundaries, and live with bold confidence and inner peace. Grab a cozy blanket. It's time to connect with someone just like you. Welcome back to the Highly Sensitive Woman. My guest today used to be an English teacher in Paris, but now she helps women who lift weights stop binge eating and feel proud of their bodies. She knows what it's like to feel out of control around food, to stress eat and snack mindlessly. She's been there, and now she's in control. At 50, she became a bodybuilder, lost 3 dress sizes, and now feels strong, healthy, and confident. She wants to stay fit for life, just like her 106-year-old grandmother. She's a certified life and weight loss coach and Havening technique practitioner who helps women enjoy their favorite foods like chocolate with zero fear of having too much. For over 6 years, she's helped women stop overeating, beat cravings and binges, and reach their goals through simple, kind, mindset-based approach. Her clients lift, eat what works for them, and feel proud of their progress without deprivation, shame, or obsession. Joining me from Paris, welcome, Nan Saysana.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I am just thrilled with how technology allows us to connect with people all over the world. I cannot believe that we are having this conversation, me in Indiana and you in Paris. And when we first connected, I told you how much I love Paris. And so this is just such a treat for me. So thank you so much for being here.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. It's a pleasure.
Speaking of our connection, I would love for you to start just by sharing with the listener how we met and our mutual connection that is just blowing my mind.
Right. I know. I love that too. I love coincidences, synchronicities. I just love that. And so I answered a question, a request to be part on podcast. And I've been doing that for several months now, and I love it because podcasts have changed my life so much, starting with the Life Coach School podcast by Brooke Castillo, that I really love that. And I love having one-to-one conversation because being an introvert, it's so much easier than speaking to a crowd. So I love that. And so I answered this message. And then, of course, because I want to really make sure that it's a fit, I listened to the podcast. And to my surprise, I heard a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, who just like me, worked for the Life Coach School for many years. I know I worked for the Life Coach School for 5+ years. I don't know about her, but many years, definitely. Sarah Fisk. And when we connected, you and I, this is when you told me that you've been, following Sarah quite a lot too. And so that was mind-blowing how there are so many podcasts out there, which is a good thing, but the chances that you and I would know somebody in common, and you know what, it happened with somebody else also after that I connected with somebody I've never heard before. And she said, well, I know somebody, I was on somebody else's podcast several times. And she said, oh, but I know her. It's just, I love that. So yeah, it was another gift on top of the first gift, which is to meet you. It's just to see the connection too there. I just love that.
Yes. And connection is so important for all of us. But I feel like as highly sensitive women, that really is kind of at the core of who we are. And I just love Sarah so much. She was so kind to be my first guest. And those of you listening, if you have not listened to that episode, I highly recommend that you go back and give that one a listen because she just shared so much wisdom. And working with her helped me see how much people pleasing was showing up in nearly every area of my life. And it really was kind of getting in the way of those connections that I really wanted to have. And Nan, you describe the work that you are doing with helping your clients, they stop people pleasing with food. And I am just so grateful to have this conversation today, because I most definitely was using food in much of my life. So what does that phrase, stop people pleasing with food, really mean to you?
Right. So it could mean, when, especially we're right now, we're in January as we're recording this. So, the holidays are not so far away. And so holidays are a time of connection with, especially with family. And sometimes sometimes, most of the time, in France, in the US, everywhere, there's a lot of food involved with celebration, which is perfectly fine. But the thing is that we may want to start changing our relationship with food. And some people are on a different path in their journey, especially at this time of year. So they may bring their favorite food, that their favorite recipe that they made just for you, when you have decided to be more mindful of what you eat, which is not a problem either. And so the connection between the two, your intention, their intention, that can create a problem, a kind of conflict in your mind, because you want to please them by honoring what they've made just for you, especially if they say so. I've made it just for you. But at the same time, you want to honor your own decision to eat differently. And so that can be tricky in those times. And I know that the problem that most of my clients meet is not just the food, and I used to be the same, it's also the time food takes, the space it takes in our mind, the decision before, what am I going to do? They're going to offer this. What should I do? I want to do this, but I'm pretty sure they're going to do this. And can I actually do this? And it's going to be hard, and so on. The moment, obviously, and then the aftermath. Oh, I did this. I didn't really want to do this. I shouldn't have done this, but why did I do this? But why did she do this? And etc., etc. So that's maybe one of the ways what I mean people pleasing with food is just, we want the other person to be happy, and we think by saying yes to the food they made just for us is going to make them happy. That's an assumption we're making. Sure, it may also be what they want, but they could also be very happy if you said, well, I so appreciate that you made it just for me, but right now I'm okay, or something like that. You can phrase it your own way, but maybe we're wrong in assuming that there's only one way to people please.
Those of you listening cannot see me nodding my head just up and down the entire time she was talking, because I can't tell you how many times I went into an occasion with an intention for myself and didn't follow through with it. And then when I started becoming aware, all of the energy and mental gymnastics, I guess, that I was doing prior to the event. Oh my gosh, if someone brings this, and what am I going to say? And what are they going to think? And all of that. And it turned out, once I started saying the thing, they weren't thinking all of that at all.
Yeah, so it's really the story in our head that's making the event, which is just a blip in time, just a moment in time, but it makes it so intense, so important, when in reality, we can lower the stress, we can lower the gymnastics, as you said, I love that word, and we can make it a more peaceful time. But I love that it took you trial and error, you did it, you actually did it, so that then it confirmed what you probably suspected, which is it was not such a big event after all to say no, or not now, or not that much, or whatever you said, because it doesn't have also to be that binary. I think a lot of people I coach, and I used to be the same, are in that binary. It's either yes and I eat it all, or no and I have nothing and I feel miserable and that's terrible. But maybe there are plenty of different options in between. It could be a no, that's not now, not as much, or not like this. Or it could be a yes, but later, or yes. I mean, there are so many options. But we don't think about that in the moment when we're so tense and so frightened and so dreading the moment. Yeah.
Yes, we live so often in that yes or no, all or nothing, black and white thinking, and learning to live in that there are unlimited number of options or approaches, I think is really, really impactful in people's lives.
So true, so true.
So not only do we use food to people please, but you and I both have used it as a way to soothe ourselves, to cope, to kind of help shove down emotions, maybe. I definitely like stuff it. If I could just stuff my belly full, I can stuff those emotions down too. So for you, what about that stopped working for you and you were like, I really have to make a change?
Yes. I think the big moment was when my daughter was born. So a little background here. When I was a teenager, I had my bucket list of what I wanted to do during my life. So I wanted to marry a man with glasses, check. I wanted to live in Paris, check. I wanted to have a career, whatever it was, check. And I wanted 2 kids. I wanted a son and a daughter. But when we had our son, then it took us 8 years to have our daughter. And in the meantime, I was miserable. Anyway, but we had a daughter finally. And I was thrilled. And I had thought that once every little item on my bucket list was checked, then of course I would be overjoyed. I would be happy. But I realized that no, I was still miserable. I was still running to the pantry after a long day. I was still doing that. So I started to understand that maybe there was something else, that having, a situation that was ideal, that had always been my dream life, something else was going on. So that's when I started realizing that there was something that I could do that had nothing to do with changing my situation, my environment, but maybe changing something else. I didn't know what at the same time. I didn't know what then. And I totally agree with you. All this time, I was using food to soothe myself, to numb my feelings, but I didn't know I was doing that. I had no idea that's what I was doing. All I knew that was I was overeating. That I was sure, but I didn't know why I was doing. And now I know that it makes sense actually that I was doing that. Lots of people, cope, soothe their emotions, numb themselves with different ways. So alcohol could be one. That's something that we ingest. There are other things we can ingest that we use to change the way we feel. But also some people scroll, on their phones. Some people watch Netflix. Some people, I had clients who were tidying their house. So that over cleaning, overeating, over drinking, overspending, those are also ways to change, at least for a split second, because unfortunately it's not long lasting and we pay the consequences afterwards. But that's a way people very often, very commonly use to change the way they feel. The problem is that it doesn't last, and that's what I realized. Something else needs to change.
Yeah, for me, for so long, I thought it really was just about food.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just knew more about what to eat and when to eat and all of those logistical things, that my quote unquote problem would be solved. It took me quite a while to understand that it was just the tool that I was using. To your point, we all have different ones, whether it is alcohol or drugs or television or social media or obsessive cleaning or whatever the case may be, right? Like we all have something most of the time that we turn to, and some are more socially acceptable than others. I feel like food is one that is a little bit more socially acceptable than others because it is at every gathering, especially as we were just talking about the holidays. So I think sometimes it's a little bit harder to recognize that is a tool that you are using to cope, to soothe,
Absolutely.
and whatnot.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And you're right. Food is everywhere. So especially to celebrate. But also, well, we can't do anything without food. I mean, we would not survive without food. So that was also part of my dilemma when I was doing this. Is just, but well, for people who drink alcohol, we don't need alcohol to survive. So it's it could be an option for them, but it can't be for me. I need food to survive. So how do I stop at 1 square of chocolate? Because I still want to have a square of chocolate, but I don't want to have the whole bar. So what do I do? And I was really confused. And just like you, yes, I was focusing on the food. I was focusing on the diet. If I could find the right food, the right diet, the right amount of food, that then, of course, all my problems would go away. But I tried so hard for 30 years and it never worked. So eventually, yes, I heard on a podcast that it had nothing to do actually with food, but it had to do with emotion. And when I heard the term emotional eating, and I thought that emotional eating was for people, who've just who are going through a breakup and they're crying over ice cream. That's not me, because I remember not feeling anything when I was binge eating. Now I know that exactly what I wanted. Actually, I wanted, as you perfectly described earlier on, I wanted to numb my feelings. I wanted to stuff them down, and it makes sense because that's why it was working, because feelings happen in the torso most of the time. And when you stuff food down your torso, your stomach, your belly, then of course it's just like a glass. When a glass is empty and you put your finger to the rim of the glass, you can hear it sing. But when the glass is full, the sound is very different. It's the same with emotions. When you're stuffed, you don't feel the emotions as much. The problem is that once you've done that, first of all, physically, you don't feel good. You feel heavy, you feel bloated. It's extremely uncomfortable. And not just for a split second, but for me, it was the whole next day. And also, there's this storm of thoughts and emotion that runs through your head after you've eaten. As I said before, yes, what have I done there? What's wrong with me? All this shame, this guilt, this regret, this judgment, we're basically bullying ourselves. And that doesn't help, because actually, what do we do when we feel terrible because of this inner dialogue? We want to feel better. And since our coping mechanism is to eat to feel better, we're actually training our brain even more to keep this pattern alive. And so it felt to me like a vicious cycle I couldn't get away from. I couldn't, break away from this prison, this mental prison. But fortunately, I then heard a podcast that changed everything.
I was in that cycle and that prison as well. And I think all women can probably relate to this, but especially the highly sensitive women, because we feel so many emotions and those emotions can be so intense. This is a very common thing, whether it is food or something else, where we're trying to numb and we're trying to push those emotions down so that we're not feeling them and we're not overwhelmed by them on sometimes a day-to-day basis. I'm just wondering, how did you, in working with your clients, help them start to connect with their bodies and really tune into what they were really feeling, and how to manage that in a way that was sustainable and that they didn't sort of crumble or become paralyzed by those big emotions that they were feeling?
Yes. Oh, such a good question. Right. So just to go back to what you were saying, as to, yes, we highly sensitive women, we feel our emotions and they can be intense. I agree with you. Also, I don't know about your background, but I know that in my family, when I was a kid, I was not supposed to say when I was not feeling well. I was expected, which I totally understand, it was well-meaning, but I was expected to be happy. And so when I was sad, my parents didn't really know what to do. When I was angry, I was not supposed to be angry. I was told not to. So I understood that I was supposed not to feel any emotion or not to express them when I had them. So that didn't help. But I mean, my parents had no idea about emotions either. Just like me, we didn't have any education about that. So it made perfect sense. So you're right. My job now is to help my clients start being educated, start knowing what they're actually feeling and how to express, how to access what they're experiencing, rather than suppressing in a way that doesn't work. That doesn't work for them in the long run. So there are so many ways we can start. It depends also on the client and where they are. But what I remember starting with was actually learning the vocabulary. So I used to be an English teacher, so of course that's the first step that sounds more like, that made the most sense to me. So basically, I had no vocabulary, emotionally speaking, because I had never thought about my emotions before. But it can be super simple. You can start by just saying, okay, do I feel good or bad? That's it. It's a bit binary, but at least I could say whether I was feeling good or bad or in between. Okay, that was a start. And then I give them a few more emotions like, okay, when you're feeling good, when you're feeling glad, okay, can you tell me more a little bit about that? And when you're feeling bad, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling mad? Are you feeling scared? And then we start expanding this vocabulary by using the emotional wheel that's available on the internet so freely. They're beautiful ones. And it's literally this. In the center, you can see 6 emotions, and then it expands and gives you more vocabulary so that you can actually try, okay, I'm feeling a little bit this way, and maybe that's the right word, or no, this word is not quite right. And also, what's really important to say is that your emotional life is yours. And so it's valid. If you're saying that for you, you're feeling, I don't know, I'm having a look at mine. If you think you're feeling isolated, well, you must be right, because you know best, and nobody's here to tell you, no, you can't be feeling isolated. You must be feeling ignored or victimized. But this is your word, this is your emotion, this is your emotional life. So that's totally valid. And so that's a sustainable way, I think, because it grows. It's just like a snowball. It starts small, but then it expands, it falls on its own, and sooner than later, you have a vocabulary you can tell about who you're experiencing, at least on a cognitive level. Then the second step, as you were saying, is what do we do inside the body? And so then it's more of a kind of a description. When you say you're feeling good, when you say you're feeling glad, what does it feel like in your body? And it starts with, where is it in your body? If you were to focus on one part of your body where you feel glad, where is it? Is it in your throat? Is it in your belly? Is it in your chest? Where is it? And again, it's your experience. So whatever you say is right, is correct. It's not a universal test. No, it's yours. It's your experience. And then, okay, if you feel glad in your chest, tell me a little bit more about that. And just think about when you were a kid in kindergarten and you learned how to describe objects. It's the same thing here. Imagine the feeling in your chest is something that you're describing, a 3D object you're describing to your best friend over the phone. What could you say in terms of shape, in terms of temperature, in terms of movement, if any, things like that. So it can be a fun way to describe your emotion. And at the same time, as you're doing this, you're taking a step back. You're not in your emotion anymore because you're describing it. So you become the watcher, you become the observer, and that gives you relief. So when you're feeling glad, of course, it's probably not a problematic emotion, but when you're feeling scared, when you're feeling mad or sad, sometimes taking a step back gives you a little bit of relief, gives you a little bit of, room where you can breathe a little bit. You're not in your emotion, you're seeing that it's happening inside of you, and that you can also narrate it, tell it without being in it and completely being overwhelmed by it.
I feel like you were just describing my life. And I think that's interesting because that's the work that we do with our clients, right? We're seeing the same things kind of coming up over and over and over again. And so often we feel like it's just us, that we are the only one who is having this experience. And a phrase to steal from Sarah is that I'm extra special, super broken. And none of us are extra special, super broken. We are all experiencing so many things that are universal. And the emotion wheel and expanding my vocabulary was something that I absolutely had to do because I had like 3 or 4 emotions. I am feeling anxious. Well, no, I'm actually feeling, a little intimidated by this circumstance. And, expanding my vocabulary allowed me to really get in touch with my body and in touch with my emotions and know that I could experience all of those emotions and be okay. And the other thing that you just said that I thought was so, so beautiful and so valuable for the listener, and so I want to repeat it, is whatever you are saying is right. That is your experience, and no one can tell you, no, that is not the emotion that you are feeling. And you have every right to feel every emotion on that emotion wheel.
Yes. Totally, totally. Yes, I want to go back to what you said about we're experiencing something universal, because it's true. We all share a human brain. So our experience, our emotions are unique and personal and temporary and totally valid in the moment. But also what I loved, coaching for 6+ years now, throughout the world, is to see that, yes, of course, we have different backgrounds. We come from different civilizations and so on. But from somebody I coached in Japan to somebody I coached in Mexico, we all share the same human brain. And so we all share this same process, that those emotions we're experiencing, they don't come from the food, they don't come from the person in front of us or the words they said or whatever. They come from the thought, the interpretation, the meaning we give to the food or anything else. So for me, that's extraordinary, because we talked about connection at the beginning of this call. This is what I love the most about this. I can connect with any human on earth because we all share that same pattern. I think it's beautiful. Also, I remember listening to a master coach from the Life Coach School, who's called, I'm going to butcher her name, I'm sorry in advance. I think her name is Lisa Hattelstad. And at some point in one call, she said, it's real, but it's not reality. She was talking about somebody who was experiencing emotions, so maybe it was anxiety, maybe it was stress. And she was telling her that, yes, it was valid. She could feel, anxious or whatever it was. It was real. She was really experiencing that. So I love that she validated that. But she added this layer that for me was mind-blowing, which is, it's not reality. It's still a meaning your brain is giving to whatever situation it was, when the situation was neutral, factual, and then it gave us space to change the meaning. So to change the real feeling she was actually feeling into something else that was as real, but perhaps better for her. And that blew my mind. So I love that. I wanted to share.
Oh gosh, I love it too. And I too had a kind of one of these like aha, blowing my mind moments, kind of similarly to you. So often we have some trepidation, kind of going back to the people pleasing of like what is going to happen. And we very commonly have this phrase in our language of fear of the unknown. And this gentleman said, it's not the fear of the unknown. The unknown is unknown. It is a fear of all of the different scenarios that your brain presents to you that could be a potential outcome. And when we kind of get control over, I don't actually know what's going to happen, it makes it a little bit easier to say the thing that we want to say, or to ask for what we really need, and to experience the emotions that we are experiencing without having to turn to other things to numb or to avoid.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, so true. Yes, it's the fear of the unknown. Well, it's the fear of the different scenarios about the unknown, because plenty of things are unknown, actually. I don't know how this 1 minute right now is going to unfold, but I'm not afraid. So life is always unknown, but we choose at some point to decide that it's a problem, and at other times that no, it's just fun. And maybe I remember studying in a MOOC about ignorance, and they were actually saying that it was not always a problem not to know what was going to happen, because when you watch a detective movie, which I love, you don't want to know everything in advance. What would be the point? When you listen to a joke, you don't want to know exactly how it's going to land. So it's really not indeed the fear of the unknown, but it's the fear of all the different scenarios that our brain presents. And it's also the fear of the feelings we think we can't handle. And so if I'm really terrified of being terrified, then of course I will not want to go there. But it's completely optional too. We could not feel terrified at all, or we could decide, okay, I'm going to give space to this terror that I'm imagining about what's to come. But maybe there could also be instead of a worst case scenario, there could also be a best case scenario. What would it be like? Since I don't know anything about the future, why not, try to balance both options? And probably chances are that it's going to be some option in the middle. which are so many, just like as we were talking about earlier on, this all or nothing, and so many options, so many gray nuances between the white or black. Same thing here. Maybe between the worst case scenario and the best case scenarios, there are plenty of different options.
Conversation with Nan is just getting started. In part 2, we're diving into the gentle, powerful sensory techniques she uses to help women calm their nervous systems in real time. Make sure you come back next week. You won't want to miss it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may be feeling like she's broken too? I'd love it if you'd leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Now it's time for me to stop talking and go soothe my senses in nature. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Take care.